Hey Kathleen, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
Okay, getting over COVID.
Ah,
Like I said, a little fired up. Haven't been able to work out in a few days, so ready to
yeah.
talk. Ready to talk about this podcast.
Well, this is a hot topic, so a lot of fire going.
Yeah, yeah, it is. Go right into it. This is about meat alternatives, or as you
Yep.
said, fake meat, and I agree, fake meat.
Fake meat. Yep.
Is it healthier for you? Is it a good option for people who want to do the right thing, want to eat vegetarian, vegan, and are trying to do something good for themselves and the environment, but is resorting to a fake meat uh, substance? Is that really healthy for everyone?
Yeah. That's a great question. And we hear that a lot. Like, oh, I'm thinking about cutting out meat. Well, what can I do? And, these are meat alternatives or fake meat even are really popular right now. So it'll be really interesting to kind of break it down and see like what's in it and how does that contribute to your overall health? And like you said, is it really any better for you? So I'm really excited to look at it and see what is it? What does it look like? So
Yeah, this is a great idea, and I came into this with an open mind. I mean, I'm skeptical for many reasons when it comes to processed foods, because this is really
mhm.
what it is. This is a processed alternative meat product, and
Yeah.
typically when it comes to processed foods, they're not so much of the best ingredients. But I was willing to kind of come in unbiased and kind of break down the ingredient list. And I sort of did that beforehand, and we'll go over the ingredients of this fake meat product, compare it to a real meat product, see if this fake
Hmm.
meat product is something that's good for you and you should be buying. And I was very disappointed.
Yeah. Same. When you kind of look at it like um and you really kind of get into the ingredients, I think initially you're like, oh, that's not bad. But then when you really kind of look and see like where they come from and what they do and how they can have like what impacts they can have, you're just like, oh, that's not ideal.
Yeah, and it's for people who are obviously want to do the right thing, right? People who don't want to eat animals and are
Yeah.
environmentally conscious. And then you have a company, whether they know it or not, is just clearly taking advantage of this marketing opportunity.
Yep. And that's it. They take advantage. I think that there's an opportunity and they see it and they're like, well, you know what, we can do this. And even somebody who is an avid meat consumer, they're like, wow, I can have a product that is plant based and not eat meat. And this is great. And, but again, it's like, but what are we doing to your overall health? Like, what are we really eating? So it is kind of like they kind of look at the consumer and they kind of prey upon them because
Yeah,
the consumers kind of don't know. And there's really no one, I mean, there is, government agencies that can regulate these things, but, if they're following all the rules, there's nothing they can do. So
yeah,
as a consumer, to we have to be aware and be educated.
yeah, exactly. And most of us don't know about nutrition, aren't educated in it, and we're not up to date in all the different marketing labels and terms. And so it's not necessarily our fault that we're tricked by these products because we don't really know
Yeah.
better. And I feel like that's not right for companies to take advantage of people when they are defenseless and don't understand these things. I really am not for that. It almost feels like yeah, just being preyed upon and bullied, and it's not right.
Yeah, I agree. No, it's definitely not right. And, they kind of just take advantage of that will that people have to want to be healthy. And they're like, okay, that's fine. We'll just make a product that's not necessarily, any better than or almost worse than any other product out there. So, um, but yeah, I definitely think that could even be another talk, just kind of going through some of these things and what it actually means. But today we're getting into the meat because, like I said, this is a hot topic. Everybody talks about it. There's new companies coming up. It seems like weekly, monthly, even.
Hmm.
Um, so it's gonna be really interesting, like I said, just to kind of break it down and see what's in the food and see how it compares to even something just like regular meat.
Sounds good. Let's get right into it then.
Yeah.
So we chose this alternative meat uh, product I guess I'll just say the company, because there's many companies now. I'm sure they're all doing the same thing, but the one we chose is Beyond Meat, Beyond Burger.
Mm-hmm.
So they're essentially packed what essentially looks like a hamburger, but there's no meat in it, which I think, and maybe you can tell me your opinion. I feel like if you are craving meat, why would you just eat something that's a fake burger? It just seems silly to me. Like, I don't.
Yeah. Now, let me ask you this. Have you ever tried it? Have you ever tried it?
No.
Okay. I have. And it's, to me, as somebody who does eat meat, it doesn't really taste like meat. Like, it looks like meat. And that's about it, but you can definitely tell. I'm going to compare it to maybe like a school lunch way back in the day before there was a lot of regulation. It just had a weird texture, taste, even. It just wasn't. It's not for me. I'll say that.
Oh, it just seems so silly. It's like, if you just don't want to eat meat, I mean, there's so many other healthier options. Just don't eat meat. You don't have to make a fake hamburger. It's ironic. It's like, well, if you're really craving meat, then you should probably maybe eat meat, maybe eat it in moderation.
Yeah. But even on the flip side, somebody who's vegan may not really enjoy the taste of meat, the textures and the mouthfeel. So that might not be a product that they would want either, because these products are intended to look like meat, taste like meat as well, cook like meat even. And so somebody who is really doesn't enjoy that, that's a whole market that doesn't want to do that. They don't want it. So,
I don't know. It's very silly, but I guess it sells. So, but let's break it down and see exactly what it is.
Yeah.
It's just so funny to me. It's just the fake meat patty. It's so bizarre, but all right. So, so looking into this ingredient list now, right away, I saw that there's 19 total ingredients. Some of those, about half of those are in like less than 1%, but still they're in there. Typically, I think when we go over any food product, if you have a long ingredient list, it's usually a warning sign in that it's probably something you don't want to eat, or at least eat often, and incorporate into your diet on a routinely basis. What do you think about that?
I agree. So when you have kind of a lengthy ingredient list, you are looking at something that's probably going to be more processed. And in this case, it's not like you took something from its original form and, cut it, added, and did whatever to it. You literally took a whole bunch of things and you squished them together and you mixed it, squished it, and all of a sudden now you have meat product. So I'm going to call this one heavily processed.
All right. So right away, you're looking at a lot of ingredients. That's already a bad sign. Something you typically don't want to avoid. First ingredient is water. All right. It's not a bad ingredient.
There you
go. But you're eating mostly water. So you're paying, I don't know I actually didn't look into the price of this, but, is water cost this much? Is it worth it to you? All right. Well,
yeah, I didn't look at the price either, but I do know that they are significantly more expensive than regular meat or even other meat alternatives, which will give you guys some alternatives to this as well. So if you're going to make something at home, what could you do?
All right. So next ingredient, and also I want to be clear, when they list ingredients in an order, so the way they list them is that the ingredient that's in the food product the most is listed first. So it goes in order of how much ingredient is in the food product. So water makes up the most of the food product. Next, they have pea protein. And it sounds good enough. And I did a little bit of research on pea protein, right? Because we also understand that not all protein is the same.
Yeah.
They all contain different amino acids, and amino acids do different things for your body. Pea protein, I saw, however, seems to be one of the better vegetarian proteins. It does contain all of the 9 essential amino acids that your body needs to obtain from the diet. And that's the problem
Yes.
sometimes when you stick to a vegan or vegetarian diet, is that you need to work hard at getting all the different types of proteins. So pea protein would be a better one for those people.
Yes.
However, there is some whether or not you can digest animal, and I think it probably comes down to individuals as well, but whether you can digest vegetarian sources of protein compared to meat sources of protein better. I've seen that meat protein tends to be digested better by people than vegetarian sources. So it could be a variable. Have you read that or come across that?
I've heard of things in terms of there being what's the best way to say it? Maybe that some people have issues digesting certain proteins. And of course, there's tons of variables. There are certain medical conditions that can play into that, but just like on average, somebody who doesn't have any kind of GI upset, that they may have some difficulty with that. But, whether that's hearsay or like, oh, I heard somebody out there and they said this, people have issues digesting certain proteins. I'm not really sure, but I do believe that like person to person, that there are going to be some variances with people being able to digest certain things. But I would say that in general, probably meat might be easier to digest because you're also not looking at the added component of like fiber in some of those vegetarian sources. So I don't know, it kind of goes both ways because protein does take a little bit longer to break down than maybe like beans would, for example. Yeah, I don't know. That could go either way. The more I can get down a really deep rabbit hole on that.
I appreciate your input. That was interesting.
I'm sorry, that was all.
No, that's great. Because there are differences, and we, like everything, nutrition is so complex, so it's really hard to know exactly, what is and what isn't. Regardless, I did see that there was one amino acid that said it was particularly low in pea protein. It was methionine. There's so many different functions. I didn't want to go into them, but that again, that's like the difference. Like there isn't like when it comes to an animal product, you have a solid amount of all the amino acids. You don't have to worry about not getting these amino acids in it. Plant proteins, you have to be more particular about the ones that you take in.
Yeah. And if, one plant protein is missing one, then we have to make sure we get it from another source. So you are kind of, having a puzzle and like trying to build it up and make sure you get all the pieces you need versus like you were saying in the meat, it's all right there. You have everything you need.
Yep. All right. So yeah, I think that's about it on pea protein. It wasn't, that much of a controversial ingredient. It seems okay.
No. Yeah. And I think that's a good alternative to some people who maybe prefer not to have soy or can't have soy protein, which is also complete. It has all the 9 amino acids. So a good alternative.
All right. So now this is when it starts to get me upset. The third ingredient, again, thinking of this now, this is the third most amount of ingredient in this product, and that is expeller pressed canola oil. So a lot of this product is just oil. And we can get into this a little bit. Do you want to talk? Do you have any experience or information you want to speak about when it comes to canola oils or oils in general?
Yeah. So canola oil is actually one of the oils that would be on the better side of your heart health because that doesn't have as much saturated fat in it, and that's one that's not good for your heart. But also looking at the ingredient list, there is one that is really high in saturated fat. So I'm really excited to get to that one because it's kind of deceiving. But so canola oil, I'm going to assume that this role in here is for mouthfeel or some sort of texture. Being that I have tried this one before, this meat alternative, it does almost leave like a fatty coat in your mouth, I felt like. So I'm kind of wondering if this oil and the next ingredient have a major role in that.
All right. Interesting. Yeah. And when it comes to processed foods, you always want to figure out why do they put them, the ingredients in the food. It's not necessarily for nutrition. It's for these feels, these textures, to keep things together.
Yeah.
So they're not even taking into consideration the actual nutrition of these products. It's how does the person experience this? How does it taste? How does it feel? Does it feel like a regular burger? So, anyway, so I did a good amount of research into canola oil because we hear about oils and there's a lot of controversy whether or not some oils are better for you than others. So I just kind of took a little bit of a deep dive into canola oil, and it was interesting. So I'll speak a little bit about it from my research. So it's actually from what's called the rapeseed plant, and they produce these small little seeds. And then canola oil is actually rapeseed that's grown in Canada. So canola. And
I didn't know that.
The problem though with these rapeseed seeds or plants is that they contain something called urusic acid. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but this urusic acid can actually be damaging to cardiac muscle in animals and is actually limited by the government in the United States and I think other nations. But when this Canada hybrid is able to grow it with limited urusic acid, which is why they're able to sell it for consumption.
Okay.
And these rapeseeds are actually also used for fuel and other products as well. So it's interesting. It has a wide array of functions and what it's sold for. Now,
yeah, interesting. Okay.
So they do have good when it comes to vitamins. They contain vitamins E and K, but there's really no other nutrition. So it's just two simple vitamins, right? So right away, when you compare that to like a whole food, when you eat like a whole food, you're typically getting a nice diverse array of many different types of vitamins and nutrients.
Right.
We're just kind of from this, not too much. And then when it comes to the types of fats, the omega-6s and omega-3s, the omega-6s are, I think, the saturated. The saturated
so
fat.
Those are, and that's the ones that we want to be a little bit more mindful of in terms of consuming for like heart health and even like long-term brain health.
Yeah. So
a diet higher in omega-6s can be very damaging to the heart and brain versus omega-3s, which, we hear a lot about. Those are heart protective and brain protective as well.
Yeah, so this was a decent ratio. I think that's why you said that. It was a 2-to-1 ratio of omega-6s to omega-3s. So it's not so bad. Let's see here. So it just contained one omega-3 fat, though, because there are different omega-3 fats, the essential fatty acids that your body needs to get from their diet. There was just one. So now, when you are, the thing is also with these oils, when you cook them at certain temperatures, they can also destroy these nutrients. So I would think it may have these nutritional touted benefits, but then when you cook these burgers, you may be destroying these what were important nutrients.
Yes, and there is some research out there that does suggest that cooking things at higher temp can actually change things on the inside, and that itself can have like different impacts on your body. Even how some of the fats can drop, like if you cook something over an open fire, even, and that fat drops on the fire and the smoke comes up. Those chemicals that are released in the smoke can stick to the food. It gets wild, so like you're saying, heating it up can also do some weird things.
And then looking into, now this is when the environment comes into play, and this is why I like to always see where do these ingredients come from. So, and this is one of the biggest, I think, reasons for the movement of vegan and vegetarian is you want to make sure the environment is cared for. And sometimes, though, ironically, when you are developing these processed products and you're growing these other crops, they can actually damage the environment, I think, in other ways as well. So this crop I was looking into, and I would have to do more research to be honest, but it seems like it's a large like monocrop. It takes up a lot of area. And when they grow it, they put a lot of pesticides and chemicals on it to prevent animals and insects from destroying the plant, and that in turn will I think affect animals and the environment as well. Things that we don't think about. It's indirect to these animals and the environment, but it has a price. And you have to think from a business perspective. It's like, how do we get all of these ingredients as cheap as possible? And you have to do some things that are not always environmentally friendly.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you just think of like the runoff of all the pesticides that gets into the water, and then that in and of itself is an issue, because then you have to look at, I mean, some people don't, I'm sure they don't clean the water like we would want them to, but animals eat it or drink it, and just the runoff and how it spreads, and just, and like you even said, like you're taking one chunk of land and you're just dedicating it to this one crop that can kind of only do very limited things. So
with a limited nutritional panel as well.
Yeah.
And then I think I also came across that most of these rapeseed plants are GMO sources. Now, GMOs are controversial, whether they may be damaging, to long-term human and environmental safety. We don't know. But I remain skeptical because, I mean, we don't know. And most of these are GMO sources. And I think GMOs are also produced because and I can be mistaken, but the reason you produce them is because then you can add on to them pesticides and herbicides that would not damage the plant because of their genetic makeup. So you could throw in pesticides onto it and it could handle it.
Yeah, no. And that's part of it. It's just saying like, okay, we know that this strand and this strand together can make like more of like a super crop, if you will. And then they can treat it differently. And I also think too, it's, our population is ever growing. And, if we had to somehow produce more with less, how can we do it? So you're right, though. We don't really know if GMO products have any kind of effect on us long-term or the environment. It's pretty new. So they're really still looking at it. And there's a lot of controversy around it still.
And then getting into what's called expeller press. So just the fact, it always just even troubles me that you have to dive so deep into these process ingredients because there's so many different aspects to it. And it's just not simple, which is always a red flag to me. But regardless, so there's different types of ways to extract this oil from the seed. One of these ways is expeller pressed. And this seems to be a better way in that it's essentially pushed through like a filter, and there's no chemicals used to extract more of this oil. However, I'm not sure that they still may be able to use chemicals. So essentially what happens with these seeds is you put these seeds onto something, and I think mechanically they crush the seeds and the oils drip out from these seeds, and that's how you extract oil. Now, thinking from a business perspective, it's like, how do we get the most oil out of the seeds that we have? I mean, it makes sense. Nothing wrong with that. And then there's other ways to extract even more oil out of that mush of seeds, and they tend to use gases like hexane. I looked into hexane can then, like solvents, can then remove more of that oil from that those seeds, and that can be found. And then you have to like bleach it and add other things to it in order to extract as much oil as possible, and that can be harmful to your health, I think, as well.
Yeah. I mean, and again, those are things that you just don't think of. Like you hear expeller and I'm like, or expeller press. And I'm like, oh, they just squish it between two things. And like the oil comes out, like you said. But then you really don't think about all the other stuff because I mean, that's not listed on the label. It doesn't have to be because it's not an ingredient, but it's still part of the processing.
Exactly. All right. Yeah. So that was the canola oil. Now we'll go on to the refined coconut oil. It seems like you were excited about this one. Do you want to?
I'm excited for probably not great reasons because, so coconut oil, I mean, I feel like it has blown up over the last couple of years. Everybody's using coconut oil and this, that, and the other. And, I think it is extremely deceptive because people look at it as coconut, it's a nut fruit type And you're like, oh, coconuts are healthy. This is great. Coconut water is very hydrating. And so I think, again, marketing, they look at this coconut oil and they look at the consumers and are like, they will eat this up. And people actually don't realize that coconut oil has the highest amount of saturated fat, which is the fat that's not good for your heart and it's not good for your brain long term. And it has the highest amount of saturated fat per serving than any other oil, even more than lard. So, when people hear coconut oil, they're like, wow, I think that's so great. But, while yes, there could be some vitamins and stuff in there as well, it's so minuscule that it's not worth the saturated fat in it. And, when you're really looking at, fats, you want one that's going to be, it's going to do the job, but you also don't want it to be so damaging to your health as well. And like I said, I think coconut oil is just one of those things. It's great for moisturizing. Put it on your feet if you want to, but I wouldn't advise ingesting so much of it.
That's great. Right. You market it. It sounds so healthy for you, coconut oil. And then you understand exactly what it is. You said it perfectly. Another way to kind of false advertise and sell a lot of what looks like to be a healthy product. Yeah. And then this one is refined coconut oil. So what that means is that it's even, less nutrients. I think for the most part, you're really just refining it, breaking it down to get it to a point where it doesn't even taste like coconut and it doesn't look like coconut. And it's basically just saturated fats, as you said. There's really nothing else.
Yeah. And again, I feel like this particular ingredient in this, patty, if you will, is probably more for structure, probably shape, again, mouthfeel. And I don't know if you ever just licked coconut oil off a spoon or something, but it really does leave that coating. It does leave that coating in your mouth. And again, when I tried this, I did really feel that. And this one I feel like that's probably it.
All right. So for the mouthfeel, coconut oil, is it worth it?
Yeah.
Oh man.
No. Not for me. I don't get that when I eat meat. So we'll talk about that.
Yeah. That's why I eat meat, for that mouthfeel.
Okay.
All right. So rice protein. All right. Kind of similar to, I guess, like the pea protein idea.
Yeah.
I looked into it, contains all the essential amino acids, but it is actually too low in one called lysine, so it's not considered a complete protein. But like you mentioned once before, is that if you pair certain types of vegetarian products together, you can get that complete profile.
Yep. Yeah.
All right. So not so bad. But again, always looking on where do they grow this rice? Where do they grow those peas? I'm sure it's something similar to a large monocrop area, probably using pesticides. How is it grown? And that's always something to look into, be skeptical about, my opinion.
Absolutely.
So let's go to natural flavors, which is bullshit because it's not natural. These are the things that make me upset, because they're just blatant, I guess not necessarily lies, but they really, go around the truth, trying to make it more, okay for the public to consume.
Yep.
So do you know anything about natural flavors before I go into it in my research?
I don't. I know that, like you said, it's probably not what you think.
Yeah, exactly. So according to the FDA, natural flavors are created from substances extracted from plant or animal sources. So like spices, fruit juice, vegetables, yeast, herbs, bark, plant material. So anything that has been extracted from a plant or animal sources. However, you can essentially extract something from a plant source and then use a bunch of other synthetic chemicals to make it taste how you want it to taste, and then call it natural flavors because you included some small amount of a natural product. So that's the get around. And these natural flavors are essentially meant to enhance flavor and not contribute any nutritional value. And they aren't much different than artificial flavors, but they call them natural flavors, obviously because marketing purposes. I saw that these mixtures can actually contain more than 100 different chemicals in addition to the original flavor source. So to my point, right, yes, it came from a natural source, but then you have 100 other different chemicals that can even include preservatives, solvents, and other substances. And food manufacturers are not required to disclose whether these additives came from natural or synthetic sources, as long as the original flavoring comes from plant or animal material.
Yeah. So that's one of the ways that they can get it. It's a loophole. And, you know, it's kind of deceptive because you don't think about all the other things that are like, well, what's in this flavor? And that word natural, like, yeah, well, the tree bark does occur naturally. But like you're saying, all the solvents and chemicals probably don't, not on their own, at least, So, what are they adding to it to get this flavor? And what is this flavor? What is it? When I think of flavors, I don't know, I think of vanilla automatically. And I don't think that's in the burger, but so what is this? Like, what are they having to add to this product to make it taste better?
And this is kind of and when you have flavors, it's like again, this is completely fake. Like, this is just a fake product that doesn't taste anything like a burger. All these ingredients are sourced and put into it to make it appear and feel, with no nutritional context taking into the importance of creating this. It's just all about how do we make this fake thing appear like a burger, which is so silly to me. And then we make this synthetic flavoring to then flavor it, and you're eating this completely unnatural and disgusting product. It's just completely fake, like everything in life. You don't want something fake. Why would you want that?
Right.
Get the real thing or get a better, healthier alternative. With this fake flavor, you're basically just dressing something up, spraying it with a little fragrance and saying this is that. Like, that's just, like, speaking common sense. It's just, how can that ever be healthy or good for you?
And what tastes like meat? Like, what flavors do you have to put together to get meat flavor? I don't know.
And I want to talk about, like, where taste comes from, why we develop tastes. I think it's when something tastes good, it's our body knowing that that's what our body needs. That's why something will taste good. It's appealing to us. It drives us to eat more of it.
Yeah.
So so when you have something that's sprayed with a certain taste or whatever, like, it's just fooling your body into thinking that's what it needs, but you realize, like, you're eating something your body does not need.
Yeah. Interesting how, you can kind of trick your body. And again, I'm sure that manufacturers and companies are just like, we know this, so let's do it, And again, loopholes, way too many loopholes here for companies to kind of get away with these things.
Yeah, that's why I always don't like when I see natural flavors or flavoring in products, because I just know, all right, this is just not good for you. Because if it was good for you, then it would taste good on its own, because it would have nutritional content and value for you that would already have it tasting good, because that's what we will be going after. And if to put fake flavoring into it, it means that there's probably no beneficial nutritional content for you, and it's a bunch of crap.
Well, so far we're down to what do we have? Water, pea protein, canola oil, and coconut oil. So I think if you just put those together in a bowl, like, I don't think that would taste good. So I'm not eating it. So we might have to, like, meat essence fragrance on it, I guess.
It's so gross, but it's a good way of putting it. It puts into perspective. If you throw it into a bowl, is that that's something you want to eat? No, it's disgusting.
No.
Maybe you want to eat it after putting some dried yeast into it. Maybe that's what.
Yeah, that'll make it taste great.
That's the next ingredient, some dried yeast.
Yeah, I see here you have question mark, adds vitamins, question mark, some protein content, question mark.
Yeah.
So what is the purpose of it? I don't know.
Maybe consistency. I'm not sure. I mean, I just don't know. I'm sure there's some reason for it, obviously. Do you know anything about yeast? I know that that's often touted as a healthy nutritional product.
Well, there is nutritional yeast, which is almost has like a cheesy flavor. These don't taste like cheese. So I'm not entirely sure of the purpose of this dried yeast here. Because I don't maybe it has to rise. You mix it together and you let it rise, but there's no
maybe some volume, add some volume to it.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I really have no idea what the purpose of that is.
Yeah, this is not a food product. This is like a toy or something, in that it's not meant
it's a science experiment.
Yeah, it's not meant to provide you with nutrition. It's meant to provide you with an experience. And that's terrible because you should not be eating something that's not giving you nutritional value. That is not the point of eating.
Yeah.
And that's dangerous.
Yeah. I mean, and on the labels too, they're like, 20 grams of protein. And you're like, oh, okay, that's cool. But when you look at it, you have like pieces of protein here and then another piece of protein here, that do come together that could form your complete protein. But again, but look at all the other stuff that's in there. Ugh.
Gross.
Not great.
All right. And then cocoa butter. That is...
I rub that on my skin.
Cocoa butter is essentially the fat that is in the cocoa bean, which is the main source of chocolate. So I guess they extract this butter from the cocoa bean. Contains a lot of saturated fats, some monounsaturated fats, a little polyunsaturated. It contains some vitamin D and some minerals, and it adds that creamy texture. So I think that's why that this is added to this food product is for that creamy texture.
Yeah, I don't think it's for the vitamin D.
And for your soft hands when you're preparing.
Yeah. Well, of course, whenever it's dripping down, you can moisturize your hands with it when you're done. Smell like meat with the fragrance. I'm feeling like this is giving me some soap vibes, some like meaty soap. Or lotion.
Yep. Just eating lotion. Meat lotion.
Meat lotion. Meat lotion. Okay.
We should just call this meat lotion.
Meat lotion.
We should invent a fragrance called, or a lotion called meat lotion. Fragrance by fake meat.
Yeah. Could also eat it if you wanted to. That's uncomfortable.
Methylcellulose is the next ingredient.
Okay.
So methylcellulose, do you know anything about this?
No, just other than, these are some big things here, but
and you're a dietitian, and you don't even know about these ingredients. So that should be a huge red flag that that dietitians aren't prepped with this knowledge, and that doctors, that most people don't even know what these substances are.
Yeah. We get a very small section on food science, which is interesting. And this is probably one of those things, I see here you have it's a thickening agent, which you're going to need if you want it to stick together, I guess. But, it's my experience and knowledge in food science is not a whole lot, So like you said, we didn't get a whole lot of background on some of these things and chemicals and what they do. And in terms of food, I guess I could have gone down that route, but I didn't.
Yeah, good. So methylcellulose it's a gum, and it is what it sounds like. These gums keep things together and they thicken these food products. So that's why you would add this as an ingredient. That's what this does. It also helps extend shelf life. And this actually comes from the cell walls of plants, and are used to make the foods thick and creamy without adding the fat. The thing is, we wouldn't just be eating leaves and plants because we would know right away that we shouldn't be eating these things. Yet these are extracted from those materials and put into our food. So already it's not going to be good for you, and it may make you sick.
Yeah. Well, and I'm sure by now they have enough fat in there, so they're like, let's not any more fat. Let's find some other source.
Let's get some cell walls of plants, some leaves. Let's throw that in there.
Some gummy.
Some studies have shown this can be associated with inflammation, alters beneficial gut bacteria, promotes chronic inflammatory conditions. I wouldn't be surprised, because this is an unnatural substance that if we took it in its whole form or even cooked it, we wouldn't be eating these products. But when they're extracted individually from these sources, then they're thrown into food, they're likely going to have cause problems within our digestive and overall organ systems.
Yeah. And I mean, and you look at it, like these things are probably in a lot of foods that we consume. And, you look at the increased rate of, inflammation and those chronic illnesses, because look how much, like how often it appears in our food that we consume on a regular basis. So we are going to have to dissect a whole bunch of labels here and ingredient lists if we're going to deal with a lot of these issues.
Yeah, I would think since I think the majority of Americans eat mostly processed foods, and I think a lot of disease and health problems likely come from ingesting materials that we shouldn't be eating.
Yeah.
Next is potato starch. This is just used as a thickening agent. I don't think it. Sort of neutral ingredient. Again,
I can hang with some starch.
Again, just keeping in line with that, all these ingredients are used to make a product feel and look a certain way, not for your nutritional value. This is not to make you healthy and make you feel good. This is to make you, to make this feel like it's something that it's not.
Yeah.
And then some of the other ingredients that are in the smaller amount, we don't have to go into it too deeply. It's nothing to really go into. Salt, potassium chloride, another salt, beet juice color. Well, there you go. So before we got to the beet juice color, this would be probably some disgusting looking concoction.
And gray.
Yeah. This gray, nasty looking, whatever it is. So then you've got throw in some beet juice color, and that's what's going to give it its vibrant, red, healthy, meaty looking appeal.
Ah, thank goodness.
Oh yeah, this beet juice color. Thank goodness for this beet juice coloring.
I mean, people probably wouldn't buy it. I mean, would you pick up some gray meat?
Of course not. That's so below me and disgusting. But if you put some beet juice color in there, I absolutely would love.
Yeah.
Delicacy.
Yeah, we're here for it now. You get a little beets in there. Okay.
Oh yeah.
No benefit from that. Just kidding.
Apple extract. I don't know.
Oh,
that's for.
Interesting.
Sounds good. Pomegranate concentrate. Now we're getting into the health here.
Yeah. But that's again probably for coloring as well.
Yep, coloring.
I would have to imagine.
Sunflower lecithin. I looked into lecithin. Supposedly this improves texture and shelf stability. It's like I say, extract something from the sunflower and they use it for texture and stability, not for nutrition. Vinegar, lemon juice concentrate, probably a preservative type ingredient. And then some vitamins and minerals, because they have to now, because there's literally no other nutrition in this, they have to put some in it synthetically.
Yeah. So you take a bunch of stuff out or mix it all together and see what you get. And now we have to add some more stuff to get a little something in it.
Yeah. It's at least
make it a little more appealing.
To give the people some nutritional value.
Yeah. Well, look, I will say this. You have protein, carbs, and fat all in one product. Not in the best ratio, but.
That's true. In a Frankenstein product.
Yeah. That's a great term, like a Frankenburger.
All right.
Science project.
What's your take on it? Because, I mean, obviously I have mine.
To me, it's not worth even the price of it, when you're getting all of this stuff that your body really doesn't need. And like you said, it's heavily processed. It's for what? It's just not ideal. A lot of these extra fats and things like that, you're not really having the benefit of eating a plant-based diet. Because when you're going plant-based or, limiting your meat, you're getting more fiber, you're getting more nutrients, and you're doing more. But this is more damaging because of all that fat for your brain and your heart. And, people who are consuming this for the long term, and, they even have sausage, like breakfast sausages and maybe like chicken. So if you do this like breakfast, lunch, and dinner, like what are we really doing? You
Hmm.
know?
And they're probably marketing it as almost like a lifestyle brand. And I think that's what it's probably
Yeah.
becoming.
Yeah, it is. And that is kind of worrisome, when you think about somebody who really just truly wants to, be vegan or vegetarian and they feel like this is a great alternative to give them what they want, but it's not.
Yeah. And there's a lot, I think this is coming out in fast food industry. They're
Yeah.
offering these Beyond Burgers or Beyond Meat. I think this is a very big issue now. And people are choosing this because they think they're doing the right thing. I think it's important
Yeah.
for them to know that, in my opinion, you're not. You should
Yeah.
at least, if you are in the mood for a meat product. I mean, I think already the problem with meat is I think we just eat too much. We eat too much of meat. We eat
Hmm.
too much of everything. So I think a
Hmm.
good uh, probably way to go about this is not saying, well, all meat is bad, and now let's come out with all of these fake products. It's just saying, let's just limit our moderation because we're already eating
That's
too
it.
much as Americans, you know? So let's just limit moderation. Meat is not, in my opinion, bad for you. I love
Mm-mm.
animals, so it's always a conflicting thing, but,
Yeah.
and I don't know, but this is life, and there's good and bad with life, and yes, some animals have to die in order for me, I guess, for us to live. That's just how it is. It's unfortunate, but you don't have
Yeah.
to kill an unnecessary amount of animals and produce them in a way that's not humane in order for you
Right.
to excessively eat meat. Because the real problem is that Americans are eating just too much uh, meat,
Yep.
and because we eat
Yep.
too much, we have to make this uh, create this animal farming industry that has to provide the amount of meat that we want to consume, and it does it
Hmm.
in what I think many people consider an inhumane way. So I think a
Yes.
first good step is to at least just start to moderate the amount of real meat that we consume, and therefore they won't have to produce the amount of animals to satisfy our meat craving.
Yeah. And honestly, even outside of that, you think about how much waste there is, like how much just food in general you throw away. It's so unnecessary. And, they have to produce and they have to keep up with that demand. But you are 100% correct that we do consume far too much meat and, or just in general, just, unnecessary amounts of food and processed goods that what's what's our purpose here? Like what's the reason for that?
Yeah, and all this.
There's none.
No, there isn't, other than for us to make us feel good, because food isn't about nutrition really anymore in our country. It's just about feeling good and experiences
Yeah.
and constantly having something to eat and make us feel good. It's not about extracting any nutrition. It's not about health, which is what it
Yeah.
should be. We should go back to that. We have to understand that everything we put into our mouth and we eat comes from the earth, comes from animals. And so we're so removed from our food sources that we just don't understand this. It's not necessarily our faults because we don't see where it's coming from, but it would be great if we did see where it's coming from, because
Yeah.
we would conserve it and realize the importance of where it comes from.
Hmm. I agree. I definitely agree.
Um, yeah, I mean, I won't go into like an actual, I guess, a grass-fed beef burger, but like I said, I like finding brands that they humanely raise their animals, grass fed. So at
Yeah.
least the animal gets to range as it would be used to, and then they end up killing the animal and allowing it to live in a humane way until it's time for our consumption.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think one thing to note about, just getting like a hamburger itself or just like the ground beef itself, is just one single ingredient. It is one ingredient. Um, there are some meat products out there that do have a little bit of additive, but if you're really looking at the label, there's nothing compared to what we just went through with
Mm.
the science project of meat
Yeah,
that we just read, you know? So
yeah. And meat is just
really,
a very nutritional. It's just highly nutritious. Um,
Yeah.
You can get a lot. It's a very efficient product. Now, if someone does want to go vegan and vegetarian, right, you can still do that. And that's a great thing to do. But, do you want to be getting beyond the burgers, or, how else can you be eating vegan, vegetarian in an actual healthy manner?
Right. So, I mean, just incorporating all of those plant-based proteins. So beans, nuts, other legumes, even we just mentioned rice, so making sure you get good quality ingredients and making sure you get a variety of them, because we did mention before that when you are eating plant-based, you're going to have some foods that have like a certain amount of the amino acids that you need, and it may lack the other one. So just making sure you get the other one as well. And it doesn't necessarily have to be like at the same time, but just making sure you get them. So having a variety. And one thing I like to think of is like, how could I make my own veggie patty at home that would be just as nutritious? So I've heard of this black bean patty that has rice in it to help hold it together. So a more natural ingredient to keep it together versus that one that you mentioned, that methyl cellulose. So putting those together, so there you have a complete protein with beans and rice, and seasoning it, however you want to season it. It's not going to be pink and it's not going to taste like meat, but it is going to be a plant-based alternative. You can even make like a ground beef crumble from lentils and walnuts, believe it or not. So a little spice here and there, and you get the flavor you want without the meat.
It sounds delicious. And I've had those types of burger, patties before. And that's a real, like, I'm not looking to eat a burger. If I wanted to have a burger, I would have a burger, but I want to have this vegetarian option that has some substance to it. And there are these very delicious and nutritious ways to go about it besides making some Frankenstein garbage.
Yeah. Yeah. And it doesn't, if you're wanting to go plant-based, you don't have to like throw away all your meat. You could start with one meal or one day, even say, meatless Monday. Today, I'm just going to focus on plant-based proteins, and how you can slowly incorporate that into your meal. There's tons of recipes online. There's tons of ways to, make the things you want without meat.
Perfect. Yeah, good talk.
Yeah.
It was interesting on my part, even researching it, coming across what's actually in it.
And I learned some things also.
All right. So very good. Like anything, we both, it's not easy to eat healthy and change the way you eat. It takes time. And if you are trying to eat vegetarian or vegan or incorporating more healthy foods into your diet, it's not something that we all know how to do in a way that works long-term. It's why I created Healthie Coach. It's why Kathleen works as an amazing healthy coach. She's has a background as a dietitian, as do all healthy coaches. So we know our stuff. We're here to help you out and help you actually sustain a healthy diet and get away from falling for this bull crap processed garbage foods. We help you find a way that's actually healthy for you that can actually last. I'm a little fired up today. Sorry.
Well, it is a hot topic, so I get it. And it is very frustrating. But all right. We're here to help. We're here to help you make those changes.
Absolutely. All right. I'll see you in the next podcast, Kathleen. Thank you so much for this. This was good.
Thank you.